Hello and welcome to Shmu in Focus. I am Sarah Eakson. I'll be your host for this episode where we are focusing on suicide prevention. Throughout this episode, there will be reference to suicide and struggles with mental health. So if you are affected by anything, please reach out and you can speak to somebody from Samaritans on 116 123. Today I am joined by Danny Colley from Men in Mind, Mark Russell from Aberdeen FC Community Trust and your own organisation, Mark, and Justine Dunbar from SAMH. We are all here as we are passionate about suicide prevention and we want to challenge the stigma around suicide and encourage people to speak up openly about their mental health. By talking openly about suicide, we can give people a chance to express how they feel and get the support that they need. Suicide Prevention Day takes place every September on September the 10th, where we come together as organisations and communities to raise awareness about how we can work together to create a world where fewer people die by suicide. So I'm going to pass you over to Justine from SAMH, who's going to give us a little bit of a background into World Suicide Prevention Day.
Right. Thanks, Sarah. So this year's theme for World Suicide Prevention Day is changing the narrative, starting the conversation. So part of the reason why we're here today really is to get the conversation going. So sadly, around 1 in 20 people in Scotland could be thinking about suicide at any one time. And I know that's an absolutely huge, shocking number for anyone to think about. It works out at around 265,000. So if we put that into local context, that's roughly equivalent to the whole population of Aberdeen City. So that's obviously a huge number to think about, but it's also a reason why we all have to be confident and comfortable about having these conversations around suicide, because actually having the conversations is what reduces risk and helps tackle what is largely a preventable major public health issue. And also, sadly, for each death by suicide, around 135 people are affected. So this is what they call the ripple effect. So not just immediate friends and family, but people in the wider community and in workplaces too. So really, it has such a wide arching effect. There's something that we can all do to try and help break the stigma. And I think it can be really easy when faced with such stark numbers to think, oh, what can I as a single individual do? But actually, we want to show that there is hope in terms of suicide prevention work, and there's something that we can all do within our families, communities and workplaces to keep people safe.
Yeah, definitely, Justine. I think that's important to recognise that suicide prevention is everyone's business. You know, no matter what your role is, there's always something that you can do to support somebody with their mental health, and whether that is, you know, supporting a local group on Facebook, or telling somebody, do you know what, I don't actually know how to help you, but have you heard of these organisations? Listening to people, listening is such a key tool. So yeah, I think it's really important to highlight, and that is why we're all here today. We all work for organisations that are part of the, you know, the suicide prevention campaign, you know, I guess to try and increase the awareness around suicide and reduce the numbers that we're seeing. So I think, you know, Danny, I'll come to you. What do you think, you know, are the main challenges facing men when they're talking about suicide?
Well, I think, as we've kind of touched on, there's a stigma around mental health in general, but as well suicide as well. I think the biggest thing, and kind of speaks from my kind of own experience, but going through potentially trying to take my own life, was just that you feel completely alone. You feel completely lost, hopeless, and in such a dark kind of headspace where it's hard to kind of explain. You're numb and lost, I think is probably the way to describe it. It's psychological torment, and you think the only way to kind of stop that torment is to go to end it, to go to that extreme. And it's when you're in that dark place, you're not thinking in a rational way, but I found therapies kind of helped me, journaling, and really kind of opening up to my friends and family. I think if I didn't have that kind of network of attending maybe, Men in Mind, for instance, or kind of going to seek the support by a health professional as well, I think I would be in a bad way again, but I think talking about it, and I know just how cold, dark and lonely a kind of place it can be when you're in that headspace.
It can be really quite isolating, for people to feel that they are alone. And I think that's, the message that we want to get across is you aren't alone when you're feeling like this. Certainly speaking to people that I've supported that have felt that, knowing that actually, I do feel like those thoughts are normal. And that's what we want to get across. That's the message we want to get across, that those thoughts are normal to have. You're not alone, and there is support out there to help. Mark, come to you. What do you think? Is there anything you want to add?
I think there's a well-known saying when you're talking about mental health, is it's okay to not be okay, and it really is okay not to be okay. I take that saying a little bit further and say it's okay not to be okay, and if you're not okay, just reach out, because you'd be amazed at the amount of people that are out there that want to help you. I do various talks in companies of all sizes, and we talk about support network or support group or groups, and someone said, Mark, how many people are in a network or a group? They were thinking, networking event or maybe a group of football fans, and I said, no, it's not the quantity of the people in your network or group, it's the quality. And again, Danny said he was very fortunate to share with family and friends, but yet I know some people who have chosen not to do that because they felt that maybe talking about something so sensitive as mental health and maybe self-harm, that their friends and relatives might tell them what they thought they wanted to hear rather than actually deliver the home truths. So it's a kind of maybe try a couple of combinations before you find what works out well for yourself.
And it's finding what works for you as well. There's no one shoe fits all. Everybody's got different ways. Justine, I'm going to bring you in now for your kind of thoughts on kind of any challenges you think there are.
Well, I would say we only need to sadly look at the stats, the fact that it's a global statistic that 3/4 of the deaths by suicide, sadly, are men. And I think the latest probable suicide statistics just came out last Tuesday. And again, we see that men, in terms of death by suicide, 3 times more likely than females. And I think I know you talked, Danny, about stigma and difficulty opening up. So what is it about? But it's not about blaming men for not opening up. It's looking at the kind of stereotypes that people place on them,
the culture that we've
and
created,
the culture that we have created that means that they feel that it's a weakness somehow to show how they're feeling. And also, actually, I was listening to someone the other day who was talking about lack of male role models when it comes to actually within services. So in terms of if you're a male going to open up about how you feel, but actually you're going to a service maybe that's all female, and how difficult that is. So it's like, if you want men to come and seek help and to open up, when actually maybe there's a conversation to have down the line in terms of how representative our services, and do men feel that they're represented in that space as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that we've spoke about actually before, that we have quite a heavy female work team here at shmu, and most of our support team are female, and that's and I know it's something that's with you, Danny, I've said before that I think it'd be great to have a male model within shmu, so hopefully we can get those coming. So what do we think we can do to break down some of these challenges that we're seeing? Justine, I'll come to you first off.
Well, I think we were talking just now about sharing stories, personal experiences, and I think those are also important and so powerful. And I think, especially in the line of work that I do in terms of suicide prevention, we can all be setting an example in terms of actually talking about how we feel, sharing when things haven't gone right, so that if more of us do that, then it means that those of us who are really struggling in a dark place, living with thoughts of suicide, can actually talk about that without fear of judgment. So I think that is something small that we can all do. Behaviour change takes time in terms of breaking down stigma, but if we all get a little braver, then it will help everybody in the long run, I think.
Definitely, I agree with that. Danny?
Can I echo what Justine said? Talking about it, and talking about it in a normal way, that so there's not this, I guess, this kind of blanket over it, that it's it's not.
It's a taboo subject.
Yeah, the taboo. Yeah, spot on with that. The kind of taboo things, and kind of echo what you said, Justine, as well, about the sharing of personal experiences, so that people know that it's that there has been other people that have been there, and you know, they're kind of maybe in a better place and understanding that things do get better. I think that's quite important, and I guess it gives those who are going through that tough time and really in a bad headspace and thinking about, you know, suicidal thoughts, or, you know, potentially making a plan or whatever to take their own lives, to say that there's light at the end of the tunnel and you will get through this.
I think lived experience is so important. It's so crucial, and I think that getting those voices out, and that's why, you know, we do all these campaigns. We want to raise the awareness. Okay, Suicide Prevention Week is here for a week, but you know, all of our organisations are here all year round. We've all created safe spaces where people can share, can open up. And you know, talking about the changing room programme that's ran by Aberdeen Football Club Community Trust, that's a fantastic programme that, you know, the guys that have gone through that have really kind of opened up and been through that. I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about that, Mark, and kind of...
Yeah, so, excuse me, so I was invited along to the very first cohort of the changing room programme, and over the years I've had just over 200 counselling sessions on a one-to-one basis. So going into a room with potentially 12 or 15 or 18 people was a bit of a challenge for me. Really thrilled that I did, because within maybe 25-30 minutes of being there and meeting these total strangers who were like-minded people who were also apprehensive, and they came in and they talked and we all opened up, and I thought, you know what, I need to take this a bit further and give something back. So pretty much after the first session I became a volunteer for the Community Trust Changing Room programme, and we've now done 8 cohorts, over 63 guys have come
It's
through.
amazing.
And not only is it amazing to see what it does for the individuals, but for the cohort as a collective. There's a spirit of camaraderie, like a brotherhood if you want, and people who come in week 1 that are really, if you like, the rabbits caught in the headlights, by the end of the programme they're all best friends, they're all talking really openly, and just looking forward to cohort number 9, which should hopefully be coming along quite soon.
Perfect. And I think, you know, Danny, that kind of comes to you guys and what you've created at Men in Mind. So for anybody that's listening, Men in Mind is a peer support group. It's a male peer support group that started back up in, I want to say, February.
Yeah.
Tail end of kind of February. And you know, you guys are seeing 20 kind of guys coming along kind of some weeks. So, you know, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that and what you're kind of seeing in that safe space that you've been able to create in that, you know, the short couple of months that you guys have been running.
Well, I think, you know, for when we first started Men in Mind, we had this hope of reaching as much men as we possibly could. Both myself and Andy had struggled with our mental health, and had, I guess, kind of been there for one another. And Andy had mentioned that he was wanting to set up a group to help men with their mental health, just through conversations from people that he's been dealing with at his work. And I think the first week we were all panicking, thinking, oh, what if nobody walks through the door? And we had about, I think, 5 or 6 guys walking through the door in the first week, and it's just went from kind of strength to strength every week. I think that's week, or would it be week 28 now, I think, this week, coming week. And we've seen a steady increase in numbers. There's always maybe 2 to 3 new faces coming along the meetings as well. And we'll always say that the hardest part is walking through the door and getting up that stairs and getting into the room. But I kind of coined the phrase band of brothers, because it is a band of brothers around that table. There's no obligation to speak for anybody. The guys who are, have been coming regularly, or indeed the guys who are coming for the first time. But it's amazing that you see some guys coming along for the first time, and we always speak to them after the meetings, and they always say, I wasn't going to speak, but I felt so comfortable and so at ease, and felt like I was safe enough to speak, and hearing the other guys' stories around the table as well has kind of spurred me on to think, and it's almost like a weight's been lifted off their shoulders almost. So
yeah. And I think that comes down to, you know, the spaces that we create for people to feel comfortable and to feel you know, okay and safe to speak about themselves. We do a lot of the campaigns throughout shmu, you know, we provide lived experience voices, and a lot of our participants and volunteers are sharing their own stories of whether it's struggles with their mental health or issues with, you know, poverty and trauma and things like that. We want to get those voices out because it is those people, like, we can only bring about change if we listen to those that have gone through that. And I think a lot of it, they're saying that they only feel comfortable with sharing those things is because of the support and the encouragement that they've got from places likes of shmu, and, you know, and that goes for the groups that you guys are facilitating as well, and providing those safe spaces where actually I'm not alone in this and there is other people that are struggling and going through. But I think it also creates a sense of hope as well, that, you know, for likes of people like Mark, I know yourself, you went through a particularly hard time where you were close to taking your own life, and, you know, you're still here to tell that story, and I think those are so powerful, because when somebody is, you know, at the end of kind of, they feel that that's the only way out, but to know actually I was in that position and I'm, you know, I am still here to tell the tale. I think those stories are so powerful.
Totally agree. I mean, I, like many other people, have got paper qualifications and certificates, and you've done this course and that course in terms of mental health, but in all honesty, what drove me and still drives me to this day is surviving that attempt that I made on my own life. It pretty much defied medical sense that I should survive that, and I did. And I'm not normally a believer in I survived this for a reason, but I genuinely think that I did survive that, and the reason is to help other people with their mental health and to not make the decisions and choices that I made that would go back to the ripple effect. It would have affected so many people, and you just don't think about that at that moment in time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I when I do my talks and so on, I refer to that scenario, and I just tell the whole story as it is, and it maybe does shock some people, and that's the idea. It's because we don't want them to go down that line. So yeah, I feel really blessed that I survived, and I'm now doing what I'm doing, and working along with these guys, and Danny, Justine, and yourself to get the message out there, because I think for me as a guy, it's a generational thing. Like, my dad was a tough guy, his dad was a tough guy. There's a whole line of tough guys that would look down their noses and laugh at you if you'd said mental health issues X years ago, and that is slowly, just like the Berlin
It's going
Wall,
to take a lot of years
chipped
to
away.
get.
It doesn't happen overnight, and
No.
there is a lot of progress being made, but still a fair way to go.
And I think what we talked about stigma and stereotypes for men, but also there was this idea that men didn't talk, but all of your projects are showing that actually they do. It's just, you talked about safe spaces, Sarah, so when you put a guy in a space where he feels comfortable with other guys that get him, then you are opening up, so that shows the power of that as well. So yeah.
Definitely. And I think, yeah, that is important to, you know, reflect on that. People will speak if they're in that space, and that goes for anybody as well. Or, you know, it has to be right, and for those people as well. So I guess, you know, the stigma around suicide is huge still, and we are getting better, but I think that's what we're all really keen to do, is we are here to challenge the stigma, and, you know, it is difficult to talk about it, and I think people are scared and they don't know what to say, and, you know, Justine, you work in suicide prevention all the time. It's not all doom and gloom, you know, there is the stories of hope as well, and there is laughter. You know, we've sat here off air and had a good laugh, and these guys have taken the mick out of me, but it is, you know, it's not all serious, and we want to get the message across, but we also want people to understand that it's okay to laugh and joke, you know, and laughter is so powerful as well, and it is, you know, there's lots that we can all be doing as individuals as well as communities and organisations, and I think that's what we're really keen to get across today, is kind of what are our tips for actions, you know, how can we take away what difference can we do. So I think conversations are really important, and kind of your words, your language, you spoke a lot about this in people's languages, I think we spoke about a bit about doing a bit of role play of how a conversation would go. So we'll maybe just see how that would work. So we're going to put Mark and Danny on the spot now. And
Cheers.
Mark and Danny are pals, and they're just gonna have a wee conversation between themselves.
Okay. Hey Danny, not seen you for a while. Not seen you down at the Boozer. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. Mark, how are you?
I'm good, Danny. But I'm going to ask you again. How are you really doing?
Honestly,
Yeah, go for it.
I've had a bit of a rough time.
Okay.
Things aren't going well at home or work, and I've just been feeling quite low and not in a good headspace.
Geez, that's not so good, Danny. How long's this been going on?
Probably for the last 2-3 months.
Wow. And have you spoken to anyone about it? Been to see a
No, Mark,
physician?
I just try to muddle on. You know what, like.
I do indeed. So rather than muddling along, would you want to take some positive action? Maybe go and see your GP, perhaps?
I think that would be the next step, but I'm just scared what people might think of me.
I get that, because before I went to my GP, having felt the same as you, I went through that scenario as well, and I thought who's the better qualified person to know what to do next, me or the GP? So I went to see the GP. Lots of detailed discussion, signposted me to counselling, and got me taking some medication, and it certainly worked for me. So is that something you might want to consider?
Well, I can't continue to keep feeling the way I'm feeling. I'm really struggling.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you think your next step might be then after we chat?
I think I might need to go and see somebody about therapy, or, as you've said, maybe even speak to my doctor about
Yeah.
how I've been feeling.
Well, that's a good shout. If you want me to come along with you as a support, even if I wait in the car or I come in, whatever works best for you, I'm happy to do that to help you through this, Danny, because
That
we've
would
been
mean
mates
a
for a
lot.
long time now.
That would mean a lot, Mark.
Yeah,
That would
good.
mean a lot.
Well, let's get something organised then.
Definitely, I'll
Go
let
for
you know.
coffee after this and we'll get something set up.
Definitely.
Good man.
So yeah, I think that was really good just to hear. That was just a couple of minutes of a conversation that you guys were having, and that's what is just giving somebody that space to be able to, I think we're often so busy or so caught up, or yeah, I'm fine, but actually taking that minute to be like, actually, are you really okay? And you don't need to have all the answers. We don't need to be medical professionals. We don't need to be counsellors. We just need to be like, do you know what? Okay, let's make a bit of a plan. Let's put some safety steps in there. Let's support somebody at the GP. We can all go and take somebody to drop them off at the door, support them in there. But I think the key thing is listening and giving that space to that individual when you're asking. Have you guys got anything you want to add into?
You just use a
into
key
that?
word there. Excuse me. Is listening is really important, because
Yeah.
it's not all about talking. Sometimes people want to use you as a sounding board, an extra set of ears, and they're maybe not looking for advice or comments or whatever, just want to get it off their chest. And once they start, and it's taken them a long time to get to the point of starting, let's not interrupt their flow. Let's keep them going and keep them talking. And then if there's a lull in conversation, you ask open questions as opposed to closed questions, because closed questions, as we know, are a yes, no. Open questions are inviting conversation. So yeah, listening is every bit as important, and maybe some cases even more important than actually talking.
I think as well, like, even just sitting with the person, like, even if they've maybe got something off their chest and there's that silence, just to let them kind of process. God, this is like a weight lifted off my shoulders, and it could be quite emotional for them. So just to sit with them, and even if that means sitting in silence and hold it, as you kind of intimated, Sarah, holding that space for them.
Yeah,
It's
you're
a very
still there.
powerful thing.
Yeah, I think that's right to say that in this sort of context, silence is a useful tool. I think as human beings, we often naturally want to fill a silence. We think it feels awkward. But when you're having this kind of emotionally charged conversation, silence is so powerful in the sense that, this person might have been carrying around their thoughts of suicide for years, that they've never opened up to anybody. So they're not feeling like they're being interrogated. It's giving them the space. And for you as the person that's asking the question, you might have been caught off guard by this. You're maybe panicking a bit inside, thinking, what do I say next? So it's giving you the space and the time to collect your thoughts as well.
So I think we're often pretty harsh on ourselves. We say things in our head that we would never dream of saying to a loved one. So what would be on your postcard to yourself to remind you of your strengths and a commitment to your future self? So I'm just going to pop that out. I'm going to start with Mark.
I thought you were. So during my counselling sessions, I actually went for hypnotherapy, which I was very sceptical about. But once I bought into the principle, it really started to work. And one of the exercises was I had to go back in time as the Mark that I was then, back to when I was a kid, cowering away in the bedroom, dreading my abusive father coming in to beat me in, to verbally abuse me. And I actually transported myself back in time in my mind during a session, and I was standing there as Mark, speaking to my little self, saying, "Don't worry, buddy, we make it, it's all good in the end." And I kind of lifted him up and took him back with me. And when I came out of this sort of hypnotherapy, that was a really emotional moment, is that I had saved myself from myself, travel back in time. So what I would say to anyone is, no matter how bad you think the problem is, there is always an alternative way out of things. No matter how bad things get, you will get through it. And I have, and still here to tell a tale.
Justine?
I think I would probably say, and I know it sounds cliche to say, but I think it really is important to me, is this idea that you have done enough and not being so hard on yourself. Because I think a lot of times, you were saying, Sarah, about how we will say things in our heads to ourselves that you would never say to your best pal. So actually taking a breath, taking a step and saying, actually, wait a minute, I wouldn't say this to my best pal, why am I saying this to myself? So actually giving yourself permission to know that you are enough sometimes as well.
Definitely. Danny?
I think along the same lines as Justine would say. You wouldn't talk to your friends or family or somebody out in the street like that, to have a bit more compassion for yourself, and pat yourself on the back, because you're maybe going through hell just now, but when you come out of it, you're gonna have a thicker skin, and you're gonna have something about you that that you can help others. You can transcend your dark day, or your the time that you're struggling, into a story that might inspire and foster hope for somebody who is in a bad place when you're in a better place. So
I think for me, if I was to go back and say to my younger self, certainly boundaries and being able to say no, and not feeling guilty for that, whether that's work life or home life, or trying to keep up with all your friends, and that actually it's okay to say no sometimes.
Still a work in progress for me, that one, Sarah.
Definitely. 100%. So me. So I've put those boundaries in recently, but my younger self, I would have probably put them in. And as we sit around here, and none of us have it all together either. We all still have our bad days, and a lot of the folk that I support be like, "Oh, but you're always so happy." But that comes with building up resilience, and it does come. But so I think we spoke quite a bit about our calls to action. What do we want people to take away from today? There's small actions that we can all be doing, as individuals. So if you're listening to this, and there are things that everybody could be doing. So checking in on those around you, and when we say to check in on them, you can identify when people, there's changes in patterns, people's behaviours. You can tell that people are maybe feeling a bit off. Really double check if somebody's all right. We are also guilty of saying, as we spoke about, "Yeah, I'm fine," but actually, are you really fine? Share your story. We spoke earlier on the power of lived experience, the power of sharing people's stories, staying informed. Language matters. Justine, do you want to speak about the app?
Yeah, I can certainly do. So we're lucky in the Northeast that we've got a bespoke app. So it's Prevent Suicide Northeast. It's free to download. You only need Wi-Fi to download it once. We have tested this in the middle of a field. It does work. So it has local support services grouped by topic. So all the details for all the peer support groups that we've mentioned today will also be in there. There's tips on how to help somebody, because we know it's the case that you can go and do training at a point in time, but years or months go down the line and you find yourself in that situation, unsure what to say. So this is a handy tool in your back pocket, and more importantly, it It has a safety plan in there as well, so really useful tool for anyone that's in crisis, getting them to stop and thinking about what their triggers are, who are the trusted people they would speak to, the places they would go for distraction, reasons to live. All those things can sit in there. So ideally a safety plan is probably something we should all have, a bit like having an insurance policy.
Yeah, definitely. Training is on there as well. SAMH facilitate a number of fantastic training courses. So sign up to them. You can take a couple hours out your day, your week. I'm very much on the basis that everybody should be trained in how to have these kind of difficult conversations. You're not going to put into somebody's head suicide. You're not going to make them suicidal by asking them. So sign up, and once you've gone through the training and actually chatted and kind of have that bit more reassurance. And that is, people I guess are scared. They're often worried and unsure what to do. The big one on here is ask and listen with kindness and compassion. Really listen to people. We've all spoke about that, and the power of listening to people. Join local men's peer support groups. If you're a female, share that on social media. Encourage your male friends and family members to go along. Danny, do you want to kind of say a little bit about Men in Mind and where people can access that?
Yeah, so Men in Mind, we host our meetings every Thursday at 6:30 at the Cove Rangers Balmoral Stadium. We also have a social group as well at Inchgarth Community Centre, which runs from 6:30 to 9 o'clock every Friday as well. And starting next month, our second group, which is going to be happening on the 4th of September, which is I think is 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Powys Community Centre. So that's going to be, we're kind of gradually expanding and trying to get into various different
And you
areas.
guys are on social media.
Yeah.
So you
LinkedIn,
can find the details,
yeah,
LinkedIn, social media, things like that. Mark, have you got so the changing room, I guess, can people self-refer to that? Can they find out about that?
It's a 12-week programme. There's structure, but there's flexibility in there, because we like to try and involve the guys that come through the door. It's not a regimented programme, it's flex in there, and we can change it to suit the individual cohorts. Once that 12 weeks is over, there's a short break, and then the follow-up programme, which is called Extra Time. I think it's 6 weeks fortnightly, and it just basically draws on what the guys have learned in the changing room, takes it to the next level, gives them a wee bit of homework to do, so they're doing a bit of thought process, and then once they've done that, we are kind of like the guys at Men in Mind. We are a sort of band of brothers as well, and that really is what it's all about, is to get guys in, like-minded people that can feel comfortable and safe, and talk about their challenges together, and as we've said earlier, to realise that they are not alone, and it is okay to not be okay.
And I think we're very lucky in the Northeast in that there's practically something on a different night during the week. So, Men in Mind on a Thursday, and then the changing room, but then you've got Andy's Man Club on Mondays as well at Northfield Community Centre. So
That's 7 o'clock, Andy's Man Club, isn't it?
Yeah.
7 till.
So if you go to one and you feel for whatever reason that format doesn't suit you, there's another one out there that you can try as well. So
Yeah. Shmu run a wellbeing cafe every Thursday 2 to 4 at our base in Woodside, so that isn't male specific, but it's male and female, and that is just again a safe space. Come and have a cup of chat, have a cuppa and a chat. We do different meaningful activities, we do wellbeing walks, so yeah, come along, and if you want to come to a mixed male female group, although a majority of our participants that come on a Thursday are male, so yeah, we are very, very lucky that there's something out there for everybody. So I think that's us kind of coming to the end of today's podcast. But I think, yeah, it's just about kind of sharing those messages. We want to end the stigma around mental health. We want to make people that it is okay to speak up. It is okay to share your story. And by doing that, we're only going to be able to make the place a safer space for everybody. Wanted to end with a quote here by Professor Rory O'Connor, who says, "Never underestimate the power of human connection."
And I think it's important to remember when we talk about World Suicide Prevention Day, but this work is crucial every day of the year, and every conversation, no matter how small, is going to contribute to a more supportive and understanding society. So I think if you take anything away from that, it's that, and remembering to listen with kindness and compassion.
Yeah, my final thought would be, it's very admirable to look after everybody else's mental health, but do not forget to look after your own mental health, and don't think it's selfish to put your mental health first ahead of anybody else's, because there are times when that's exactly what you have to do. If you can't help yourself, you're not much use to anybody else, really.
I'll just end on a quote as well. There's a quote that I love by Walt Whitman that said, "Be curious, not judgmental." And I think we should be curious around mental health, suicide as well, and past judgment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, fun final note here that it just says that we can create a more supportive and compassionate society where suicide is preventable and everyone feels valued and understood. Start the conversation today. Every conversation, no matter how small, contributes to a more supportive and understanding society. Together, we can make a difference and work towards a future where suicide prevention is prioritised and everyone feels supported to get the help that works for them. So I have been Sarah. This has been a Shmu in Focus podcast. Thank you very much to Danny from Men in Mind, Justine from SAMH, and Mark from Mark Russell and Aberdeen Football Club Community Trust.
Thank you, sir.
Nice one, thank you.